It's almost been an entire year since I tested in sword PvP and I've stayed the same tier. My first test I ended up getting low tier 5, and the test just now I ended up getting demoted back to low tier 5. With me having a goal of getting low tier 3, earning the same tier after an entire year is honestly quite demotivating. For 2-3 months now, I've been doing the same thing, just training and training, with the same results. In the past, I blamed these results on the judgment of the testers, on the flaws in the tier list system, which exist, but they're no excuse. If I was truly low tier 3, these hindrances wouldn't matter and I would have gotten it long ago. And so, after training for months on end, I decided it was finally time to test my skill in some other tier lists. After testing these alternate tier lists, I came out with an average of about high tier 4. However, tests aren't everything, and I still did have to prove my worth against regular players. However, this time was going to be different. I was going to train and train with no ultimate goal. No, this time, every fight, every mistake I looked upon. And after months of practice, I managed to develop a playstyle that could counter players with both high and low ping. And therefore, you get a montage! However, something's different from the last 2 times I tested. Now, as most of you know, MCtiers split a few months ago. This means that there's now 2 sword tier lists that are considered to be official. And with me not really picking sides, I just decided that I had to get low tier 3 in both of them. So, I decided to first test in Marlow's tier list. Last time I did that, I ended up getting low tier 4, but I've improved a massive amount since then. With my tester being a low tier 3, this meant that the rounds had to be decently close, and there was no way that I could get low tier 3 just by winning 3 rounds and performing well in the others. And if I was really low tier 3, this was the time to prove it. Something I wasn't aware of was that on Marlow's tier list there had been a new rubric change and that all sword tests were now first to 6. Technically this was a good thing because this meant that I had only won 1 round less than my opponent had, but after looking back at the footage I realized that I had been up 5-2 and like I sold 4 rounds, and that's kinda depressing, so I'm still kinda mad about that. However, even though most of the rounds were extremely close, right now was not the time to dwell on the mistakes that I'd made. My tester was still deciding what tier I got, and multiple questions flashed through my mind. Were the 4 rounds of a comeback he made enough to plummet me to high tier 4? Why did I perform so bad in those last 2 rounds when I'd gotten such an early lead? However, I began to realize that regardless of the mistakes I made, my determination had pushed me through this whole ordeal, and that I had already been low tier 3 this whole time. I had finally done it. After an entire year of sword PvP, I'd finally achieved low tier 3. Finally, after so long, I'd proven myself. Now that I was low tier 3, I was eligible to become tester, and I could test for high tier 3 now. Who knows, maybe I can get high tier 3 someday. But all that was important was that I'd gotten low tier 3, and now I could finally rest. Except, I can't do that. If you remember earlier, I said that there were 2 tier lists, Marloww and Learns. While I did get low tier 3 on Marlow's, I haven't gotten it on Learns. And I've been told by multiple people that myself and Marlow's tier list are both boosted. And I don't know how boosted Marlow's tier list is, but me myself, that's a challenge that I simply cannot refuse. My entire life, I've always been trying to prove people wrong, even if it meant doing things that I never truly wanted to do. I always had to find a way to best them. And so, no matter how long it takes, I will get low tier 3 and prove all of you wrong.